Erotic Love and Marriage, Improving Your Sex Life and Emotional Connection by Frederick Mondin. Narrated by Edward Bauer. Acknowledgements. From the inception, my partner in life and in marriage, Dr. Joan Henderson, was an enormous help to the completion of this project. She very patiently gave me superb insight and advice. Her contributions were numerous and at times poignant. Joan has been a loving partner for 42 years. She has always complimented me and validated my abilities. Moreover, she is one of those rare people who have the ability to see clearly into the nature of things. She has been my inspiration and the love of my life. She is my best friend. Without her, this book would not have been written. I also wish to acknowledge two of my oldest friends, Dr. Frederick and Jolene Jones. They never stopped encouraging me to write, and their support was a constant foundation of confidence that I truly appreciate. Two of the most intelligent and positively oriented people I know, they were often my best resource to answer my questions. I want to thank Tom McIntyre, who helped me organize several workshops, including one on sexuality. His constant suggestions and encouragement planted a seed in my psyche that germinated into this book. Pete Kruger saved me considerable time, frustration, and agony with his computer knowledge and skills. Without his genius, this project would have been far more frustrating. A big thank you, Pete. I wish to thank Dr. Edward Bridges for always being such a great friend. He has been a supportive and insightful consultant on any life issue. Edward kept me laughing whenever the situation was becoming too serious and intense. A very heartfelt thank you to Brian Feinblum of Media Connect for his very competent work on this project. My children, Julie and Dr. Greg Mondin, have consistently been advocates for my success. I thank them both for helping me to mature. I wish to thank Boise State University and the psychology department for giving me the opportunity to teach a difficult subject to wonderfully bright students. In my 25 years of teaching human sexuality for Boise State, the university has been the pinnacle of academic freedom. Lastly, I want to thank my literary agent, Nancy Rosenfeld of AAA Books Unlimited, who was profoundly helpful and insightful, and whom I credit for the publication of this book. I also extend my thanks to Suzanne Stajak Silva, executive editor of Rowman & Littlefield, my publisher. Introduction. How I learned about sex. In my family, the one subject never discussed was sex. I cannot remember the word sex ever being mentioned, except for a few instances when I questioned the meaning of the word sex and was quickly rebuked. When I was 16 years old, I questioned my father about why he had never told me about sex. He immediately became angry and responded, "Nobody appreciates what I do around here." He then walked out of the house and drove away. With my mother, not only was the subject of sex taboo, even uttering the word would bring on her rage, since she viewed sex as something sinful and evil. Once she overheard me utter a sexual slang word, which I didn't even know the meaning of. She washed my mouth out with soap and sent me to bed without dinner. She never did tell me what the word meant or why it was so offensive. Throughout my childhood, the subject of sex remained a mystery. My peers talked about sex all the time, and would mention some girl in the neighborhood that they wanted to screw, but I had no idea what they meant. Not until I began high school did I learn from my peers what sex was all about. While I felt a strong attraction to girls, I was afraid of them. What I really feared was my sexuality. Because of the negative messages about sex, which had been reinforced by both my parents and my church, I felt the subject was dangerous and sinful. My mother had so convinced me that sex was wrong and immoral that when in the company of the opposite sex, I felt vulnerable and tongue-tied. My story might sound extreme, but it is not unlike the stories I have heard from my students and clients. Here are a few of their comments. My first sexual encounter was disastrous. All I remember is that I felt guilty, dirty, and cheap. In my house, we never talked about sex because my parents avoided the subject. It was as if sex did not exist, and I only learned about it from my first boyfriend. In the 11 years I have been married, I have never been in the bathroom with my husband, nor have I ever seen him undress in front of me. He is a good Catholic boy and does not want me to see or even touch his genitals. We have never had oral sex, and our lovemaking is always at night with the lights out and under the covers. I am sure it has never lasted more than 5 minutes. I always had an open ear for anything about sex, but all I ever heard was how naughty it was. I was raised with complete ignorance on the subject of sex. My first sexual education occurred when I discovered my dad's porn magazines. I stole a couple for myself and kept them hidden. My parents never taught me anything. I learned about sex from an older girl who seduced me, and afterward I experimented around with any girl available. I am 39 years old and have never had an orgasm, nor have I ever felt comfortable with sex. I like sex, but I would never masturbate. That's for sluts and whores. I am so tired of being rejected by my wife whenever I suggest we make love that I have finally stopped asking. We have sex so infrequently that I mostly have sex with myself. What you will learn from this book. Teaching human sexuality for 25 years has provided me with the tools to help others understand more fully about the most basic human need, to love and be loved, which I craved as a teenager but only understood as I reached adulthood. While I think anyone can benefit from the knowledge in this book, the focus is primarily for the benefit of couples. I discuss the subjects of sex addiction, masturbation, female orgasm, erotica, pornography, infidelity, emotional love, and how to sustain a romantic relationship. My goal is to inspire my readers as they glean a better insight through the pages of this book. Erotic Love and Marriage also exposes the sexual legacy that we have inherited, and which continues to this day to create and perpetuate a continuing negative sexual belief system. Much of this negative and restrictive view of sexuality has been reinforced for generations of Americans. This book will challenge the traditional ideas and beliefs that perpetuate fear, guilt, and shame, negative views that have stifled and repressed our own erotic expression. Such beliefs have taken a toll, especially in marriage, where couples restrict sexual communication and activity out of fear of doing or saying something believed to be wrong. Western civilization has a sexual legacy inscribed by powerful men who controlled the tenets of the church. These men feared sexuality as something so sinful that to engage in sex would be enough to condemn a man's soul to hell. Therefore, they remained celibate while condemning the act of sex unless it was for procreation only. Their biased view also influenced their interpretation of the Bible regarding sexuality. Even today, American culture is reluctant to completely reject the sexual mores of the first 1,000 years of the Christian era that are woven into our laws, our beliefs, and our American culture. The view maintained in this book describes a positive perspective on sexuality. Information on the subjects of female orgasm and male sexual functioning will make it clear how couples can improve their sexual experience. In my marriage counseling practice, I continue to have couples confess that they are not meeting each other's sexual needs. They also feel that when they do have sex, it lacks excitement. Erotic Love and Marriage will help couples improve their sexual success and pleasure by providing the tools to make their relationship more erotic and thereby increase emotional intimacy with their partner. Unlike some countries, in America our culture does not provide us with a comprehensive sex education. While past restraints have eased since the 1950s, many people, couples included, still find it difficult to be open and frank about their sexual needs and feelings. Even to pose questions about sex can cause discomfort. Many parents today remain uncertain about what and how much to tell their children, and even couples who have been married for many years often find it difficult to have a frank discussion with their spouses about sex. Women fake orgasms, men worry about their sexual performance, and the use of sexual slang or erotic language remains foreign to couples who maintain a low level of eroticism and inhibit sexual excitement in their relationship. My interest in learning about human sexuality began during the early years of my academic experience. While pursuing my undergraduate degree from Whitworth University, I enrolled in a sociology course in which the professor gave the class an assignment to carefully research a subject, with all available facts included in a comprehensive report. My report was on female orgasms among married women in the United States, and I found it astounding that in 1956 the consensus was that between 85 and 95% of American married women were non-orgasmic. Of the 5 to 15% of women who had experienced orgasm, these reported instances were very infrequent. How could so many married women be unable to enjoy what men had no difficulty attaining? Sexual